and you should receive a link. So if you did have to drop or if you want to reference it again, you can feel free to tune in. But to go ahead and get us started, hello, thanks for joining us online to learn more about the NYU Stern Executive MBA program in DC. My name is Heather McDaniel. I've worked with the Executive MBA admissions for a little over 6 years. I host events, conduct applicant interviews, and I really enjoy getting to meet interesting individuals and help candidates pursue their passion. So I look forward to getting to know all of you throughout the application process. The presentation will last roughly 30 minutes. We will have some time at the end to answer any questions, so feel free to submit questions using the Q&A feature throughout the presentation, but I will save answering them until the end. If you have any questions specific to your candidacy or application, I'd encourage you to reach out to our team directly, and I'll share contact information at the end. And I will be speaking specifically about the Executive MBA program in DC. At Stern, we also have the Executive MBA program in New York City, which is very similar, only really a schedule difference of every other week versus the once a month format in DC. We also have a full-time MBA and the Langone part-time MBA programs. So like I said, I will be speaking about the Executive MBA program in DC, but I encourage you to join events for the other programs as well as reach out to the admissions teams for those programs if you do have questions or want more information. So to start with just a little background about the EMBA in DC program. So we launched the Executive MBA program in Washington, DC in 2018. And we are centrally located at NYU DC Academic Center. We had the opportunity to bring our flagship EMBA program to meet the demand of our program in locations beyond New York City. So the DC program offers a convenient once a month format. It appeals to both local students as well as long distance travelers on a 1 weekend per month, Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule. The program has evolved since our launch. So based on feedback from the students, staff, and faculty, we've integrated new courses into the curriculum. We've increased the number of electives and specialization options over time. And for example, recently we launched a second year global immersion experience elective to provide our students with a more global exposure opportunities. And the program's unique in that you have a really close-knit cohort experience during residency weeks and on class weekends. You're in a cohort of about 35 to 40 other students, and the program enables you to build deep relationships with your peers as well as with the faculty, while still having access to the broader NYU Stern and Executive MBA networks in New York and beyond. In 2023, we celebrated the 5th year anniversary of the DC program, and we continue to bring in new cohorts, and we'll see the program and the DC specific community grow as we continue. So this is a snapshot of the Executive MBA program in DC structure. We have one intake class each year in August. The program takes approximately 24 months to complete. Classes are held in person 1 weekend per month on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're on site anywhere from 9 to 4:30 with classes. And then there are some weekends with classes in the evening. And we recognize that your schedule is busy, so the program is structured in a way to help balance work life and school, and we'll look a little closer at what a daily schedule could look like. There are 3 required 1-week residency. The first is an orientation week at the start of the program, bringing your cohort together for the first time. During that week, you start taking courses, and there are often networking and panel events in the evenings. Orientation generally takes place in New York. It's coming together with the class that starts simultaneously in New York City, so that gives you the opportunity to engage with other students completing the Executive MBA program in New York. And then the second required residency is the global immersion experience that's part of the core curriculum, and we'll look a little bit more at that in a moment. And then the third and final residency is at the start of the second year when you're deep diving into your electives. The program's completed in approximately the same time as pursuing the MBA degree full time. And regardless of what MBA program you pursue, so full time, part time, the executive programs, all graduates are earning an MBA in general management from NYU Stern. So we recognize that our students have busy professional and personal lives. So the MBA program offers an immersive on-campus experience in a once-a-month format that is more manageable for busy professionals. It's small, like I said, about 35 to 40 students in a cohort. So the program offers a really intimate setting to develop deep relationships with the other students, as well as the faculty. The classes are small, so core classes are completed with your cohort of 35 to 40 other students. And then in the elective year, that can be a little bit smaller and range in size anywhere from 10 to 30 students, which enables you to engage more deeply in topics and in discussions. The NYU Stern faculty traveled down to DC to teach in the IMBA DC program. So this ensures the same rigorous academics and learnings across the programs in New York City and DC. However, given the small cohort size, faculty are within reach of the students. They're accessible, they're available on campus after classes. They have lunch with the students. And so this really enables students to build long-lasting connections with key thought leaders. And the once a month format also gives students greater flexibility in completing coursework between class weekends. So students report spending an average of anywhere from 10 to 20 hours per week on assignments, projects, readings, or group work, study outside of the class. And so with the once a month format, you have a full month to complete deliverables in between your class weekends. So this gives you the ability, if you did need to take a week off, it allows you to catch up in a following week if needed based on your other commitments. And then finally, the monthly class weekend format enables us to also have a broader geographical diversity in the cohort. So students in the DC program come from across the US. We have about 30% of the cohort traveling from over 40 miles from campus. And with the DC campus being so centrally located, it's easy for commuters to get there from the airport or the train station. So a lot of this once a month format location and the structure of the program has really been appealing to our students. So our curriculum is designed to give you a strong foundation, but it also allows you to follow your own interest. The core curriculum is completed in the first year of the program, and it provides a strong foundation in the key areas of business, such as finance, accounting, marketing, strategy. It also does include the global immersion experience, which is required as part of your core curriculum in year one. And then in the second year of the program, you'll be taking electives. And this is the opportunity to build on the foundation or explore different areas of interest. So and depending on the electives that you take, you may specialize in up to two different areas. And specializing is flexible. You can choose your electives based on the specializations you'd like to declare, or you could simply choose electives of interest and declare a specialization after the fact. That decision is entirely up to you. And as previously mentioned, at the end of the program, you're earning that MBA in general management. So taking a closer look at the global immersion experience, this is a required part of your core curriculum. You can elect to go on a second global immersion experience. We call them GIEs in year two. GIEs are intended to offer exposure to other global business centers and provide engagement with the business world beyond the classroom. Students participate in company visits, they meet with business leaders. Some of our recent classes have visited Colombia, Vietnam, Beijing, Greece. We actually have a cohort right now in Stockholm. They typically try to choose dynamic, emerging, or re emerging markets, and it's usually announced within the first month of the program, the destination for the first year. Beyond the GIE, MBA students also participate in other special residencies and class weekend experiences to build and foster connections with the cohort and other students in the MBA program. So the first is the domestic residency, which is held outside, just slightly outside the cities of New York. It overlaps with the residency for executive MBA students in New York. So this is, like I said, your orientation week. The classes are taken with your DC cohort. It really allows you to establish those relationships and network, and but also meet the New York City cohort and build connections beyond just your class. So, like I said, it's a great introduction to the program and helps get you acclimated relatively quickly. The second domestic residency takes place in DC at the beginning of the second year. And this is to immerse yourself and jumpstart a rigorous academic curriculum in year two. So, taking your electives in year two. For both residency, accommodations are provided by the program, regardless of where you live. DC students also spend 2 class weekends in New York, so one in your first year and one in your second year of the program. And these class weekends continue your academic journey at our location in Washington Square Park, but also furthers those connections with the MBA New York students through joint events and networking opportunities. So, for example, during the last MBA DC class weekend in New York, there was an event hosted by the Working Professionals team, so our careers team, which had opportunities to interact with various New York NYU centers and institutes. So it's really, again, just a great opportunity for you to further those connections with the NYU community. And as a NYU Stern MBA student, regardless of location, you always have access to the NYU Stern campus in New York and to Stern-wide events, clubs, and activities. But the class weekends really help facilitate those connections to the community. So as I mentioned, the faculty, it's the same tenure, the same faculty that teach in the MBA program in New York City. They are the ones who are bringing the curriculum to life. The executive MBA faculty are hand selected to teach within the executive MBA program, and they're invited based on their experience teaching experienced professionals. So they must be prepared to tailor the education and analysis based on the diversity and depth of experience of the students. So, for example, we have individuals and people coming in with such a broad range of knowledge. We have some marketing professionals and some finance professionals who have not had exposure to those topics. But so the faculty have to be prepared to teach to those students who have really deep knowledge in a topic, but also being relatively new. They tend to be leading experts in their field. They're active in the business world. They participate in research, consult to top companies. So they do tend to be really, really active, and they're accessible. The small cohort size also allows students to get to know the faculty really well. So taking a look at the kinds of people you can expect in an executive MBA cohort, one of the hallmarks of the typical executive MBA class really is the diversity of the cohort. We are seeking professionals from all different backgrounds, functions, and industries, and this creates a really unique peer learning environment. Students are sharing their insights in the classroom from their different experiences. There like I said, about 35 to 40 students per cohort. The average age nets out around 36, but this really runs a full spectrum. Average work experience around 12 years. We ask that students have a minimum of 6 years of work experience, but again, it really does run a full spectrum. On average, about 25% international background, 31% advanced degrees, and 35% female. And you can see it really does run a full spectrum of different industries, 24% across government, military, nonprofit, and education, 17% consulting, 12% financial services, and then even further with healthcare, real estate, marketing, education. So, and this can be one of the slight differences between the New York and DC programs is really just in the industry representation, where New York could sometimes have a little bit higher consulting and financial services, where DC might lend a little bit more government, military, nonprofit. Um, but like I said, we look to fill the cohort with people from all different industries. So it does give you the opportunity to learn from different functions and industries. Students are also placed into cohort or to study groups, and we try to pair people based on different backgrounds. People what could mimic a real world working group. So your study group can serve as a great resource for um, diving a little deeper into topics, hoping that somebody might be an expert in a certain area that you might not have that skill set. If you ever had to miss class weekend, your study group can serve as a great resource for that as well. And while this is reflective of a typical class profile, there's not a typical executive MBA students. We see people come not just from the world of business, but also medicine, law, nonprofit, military, the arts. And we've seen success from people of all different backgrounds in the program. So students are not only joining the Executive MBA program to enhance their knowledge and business expertise, but also to equip themselves with tools needed to achieve their professional goals. So available to Executive MBA students, it's the Career Center for Working Professionals. It's the Working Professionals group within the Career Center. And while we don't provide, executive placement services or necessarily do on-campus recruiting, there is a robust suite of services that help students self-manage your career, and we do have career coaches that can help with anything from resume review, interview prep, network coaching, and their career counselors can be available to meet on class days when they're there, and in between class weekends by phone or video chat. There are also workshops and events available throughout the course of the program. And we often bring in, current student and alumni from different industries to meet with students for insider's views. So there's a lot of resources for students with the alumni resources to help students throughout their career. And as there's also the lifelong learning opportunity. So even once you've graduated, you can enroll in executive education courses or you can audit electives. So it really gives you the opportunity to engage and continue that learning post-graduation. And you're immersed in this program for the 24 months, but you really do join the NYU community for a lifetime, and you have access to the career services, the alumni network, and the lifelong learning opportunities post-graduation. So taking a look at the logistics for the program, tuition is currently about 197,000, but that covers the entire 24 months of the program, and it includes many incidentals associated with the program, such as your books, your materials, meals on class days, costs for the residencies. The only costs excluded are airfare to and from the global immersion experience. Um, and as well as any visas that might be associated with the global immersion experience. But all other elements of the program are covered. It really is an all-in cost. Hotel accommodations are provided for those that are eligible based on distance from campus. Um, and so while cost is an important consideration in thinking of the MBA program, there are also resources for financing your MBA. So you can reach out to our financial aid team. We have a dedicated graduate financial aid team that helps understand the loans, the FAFSA process. There are also scholarships available. So there are scholarships awarded by the admissions committee that you can apply for in the formal application. Those are all partial. We don't award any full tuition scholarships. And it's just a holistic review of your application to award those. There may be additional scholarships beyond what are awarded by the admissions committee that you may be eligible for. So those would be for you to reach out to those and learn a little bit more about. There are some listed on the Graduate Financial Aid website that you may be considered for. Um, and then if you are awarded a scholarship through the admissions committee, that is communicated to you at the time of admission. And we also have for anybody, um, that falls into military veterans. We do also have somebody that works specifically on. We're proud to sponsor the Yellow Ribbon, and provide. There are resources for figuring out veterans benefits for the program as well. Great. So, curious how to apply to the Executive MBA program, our process is straightforward and holistic. It's a two-step process. The first is the pre-assessment. Some of you may have already completed this. For those that have not, I certainly encourage you to do so. And this is essentially just you raising your hand, letting us know that you'd like to continue the conversation. Completing the pre-assessment, it should take no more than 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Just requires answering a few basic questions and uploading your resume. So provided you have a current resume, it should be a relatively quick submit. And in the pre-assessment, we're looking to see that you meet our prerequisites of a minimum of 6 years work experience and hold a bachelor's degree. For those that may be right on the cusp of 6 years, I'd still encourage you to submit your pre-assessment for review, and our team would be in touch about your candidacy, either saying, yes, go ahead, or maybe consider applying for a future cycle. So once that's received, a member of our team would be in touch to clear you for the next step in our process, which is completing the formal application. And the formal application is a bit more of the standard application. It includes 2 required essays. There is also an optional essay that you could use to address anything you want the admissions committee to know that may not be covered elsewhere in your application. Many people use that space to address if undergraduate performance, if they don't feel that that was up to par, or if there were gaps in employment or anything like that. People use that space to address those types of things. Transcripts. So at the time of applying, you can submit scanned copies of your transcripts. You only need to provide official transcripts if you're admitted and decide to enroll. And we do require transcripts from all universities in which you earned a degree. So for any bachelor's, master's, doctorate, we don't require transcripts for any one-off courses that you may have taken elsewhere, just for wherever you earned your degrees. We require 2 professional letters of recommendation. We ask that one be from a current supervisor and one from a past supervisor, colleague, or mentor. If you're not able to provide one from a current supervisor, that's totally fine. We just require a short written statement letting us know that you're not submitting one from a current supervisor. And that's the case for many if they're between jobs. If you haven't worked for your supervisor for very long, if you have your own business, so that's totally fine. We just look for the written statement for that. An interview with a member of the admissions committee is also a required part of your formal application. So our team will be in touch to schedule this. You can have your interview while you are submitting all of the other pieces of your formal application. You do not have to submit your formal application and then be invited to interview. It's part of your formal application. So we always encourage, once you're starting the formal application, go ahead and schedule your interview. It is formal and evaluative, but it also gives you the opportunity to ask questions and confirm that NYU Stern Executive MBA program, it's the right fit for you. Interviews are generally held by Zoom video, and they last about 30 to 45 minutes. So a sponsorship form, this is an optional piece of the application. We do encourage you to have a conversation with your employer, as the program does require time out of the office for the class weekends and residency periods. But providing that proof of sponsorship is proof of time sponsorship is not required. Also standardized test scores, so GMAT, GRE, executive assessment are also optional. We are looking more at previous coursework and career experience as indicators for success. If you're having concerns about demonstrating academic or quantitative preparedness, the standardized test could certainly support that, but there are also other preparatory courses you could consider. And this is a great thing to talk with your interviewer about if you do have concerns about being prepared for the quantitative rigor. And then an application fee that's generally processed through the site. However, as a thank you for joining us, you will receive a follow-up email with an application fee code included. Um, so this makes up the full application. You complete the pre-assessment and then you proceed through the application. One thing to note right now, we are going through a system change. So our system is changing on Monday. So for anybody who may be working on the pre-assessment or the formal application, you may have received notification to either submit prior to Monday or just hold off and submit all of your materials on Monday or after. And that's just, again, on the back end, our system is changing over, but the requirements for the application are no different. And there's not one part of an application that will make or break your candidacy. So we recommend focusing on the entire story that you're presenting to the admissions committee in your application. We do have so our application for the next August start term is already live. You can certainly work through. Like I said, I would just encourage you to hold off and wait until Monday to start that process, simply because of the system changeover. But for next August, we're already accepting and reviewing applications, but you're still in a certainly fine place to submit your application. We don't have deadlines until the start of next year. So our March 1st and May 15th deadlines are noted, but we do rolling admissions. So like I said, you can go ahead and start your application, submit your application, and decisions are released on a rolling basis. So typically whenever we receive an application, decisions are released within 3 to 4 weeks. Great. And so for those who haven't, like I said, I certainly encourage you to submit that pre-assessment, taking the first step, keeping the conversation going. All of our contact information is listed here. Our pre-assessment is linked on our website under the application process. Um, so if there are questions, I'm certainly happy to answer. We do also have some upcoming events, which are great opportunities for you to hear directly from students. We have some student panels coming up on September 30th and October 23rd. Like I said, this is a great opportunity for you to get to hear directly from students about their experience in the program, and they provide a firsthand experience talking about the curriculum, the faculty, the global immersion experience, juggling work life and school. So certainly encourage you to save the date for those. They are live on our website, so you can feel free to go ahead and register for those as well. So that wraps up the presentation. Feel free to submit. I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come in. So feel free to submit questions that you may have in the chat. I know some have been submitted as we've been going, and I'll try to get to as many as possible as we go. Oh, great. So a question here about specializations offered in New York versus DC. So there are specializations. The specializations offered in DC are the same ones that are offered in New York. DC does have a slightly culled down list just because the cohort is smaller. In New York, we have 4 cohorts going through the program at one time. So when elective years get broken down into smaller groups, there are slightly more electives offered in New York than in DC. But we've taken our most popular classes, our most popular specializations, and that's what has been offered in DC. Great. So someone asking a questions for transcripts. So the requirement is a bachelor's degree. So that I would say is the priority, is providing a transcript for that. For if you have associates, you could certainly submit the transcript. It would not hold anything against your application, but if that one's a little harder to get, then the requirement would be your bachelor's. And as we review your application, if we did have any questions or want to clarify any of that, we would reach out to you. It's another one of the reasons why we kind of have that interview process, as well as kind of a direct contact for you to reach out to, is if you do have any questions, about the application process, or as you're working through, you have somebody you could reach out to. We have a pretty high touch process, and we're happy to support at any stage throughout the process. Great. Somebody asking just about the recommender ready to submit their information. I'm gonna take down your name and get back to you, because I do want to let you know whether or not you should submit it now or hold it until Monday. Um, Sorry, I don't have an answer for that right now, given that all of the materials won't be submitted, but the recommender, I understand that that might be ready to submit. So I will get back to you on that one. Um, Great. So for people who have submitted an application, that timeline, so going back, like I said, it's rolling admission. So once you've submitted your formal application, it goes under review by the admissions committee, and decisions are typically released within 3 to 4 weeks. And then once you've received notification, if you're admitted, you typically have a deadline of 2 weeks um, to accept your spot in the class. Great. A question here for the 9/11 GI Bill. Yes, we do, and we have a direct contact that works in financial aid that works with students on putting the package together. Um, it can vary student by student, depending if they're, how if a portion of the GI Bill has been used, as to whether or not it will cover the entire tuition. But it does cover a majority of the tuition. But I would encourage you to reach out to the graduate financial aid team, and they can also put you in touch with the person on our team that does handle all of the GI Bill packaging, and they would be able to better advise whether or not it would cover the entire tuition. Great. A question here about taking classes across DC and New York. Unfortunately, no, there's not the opportunity to take electives, because our electives are only offered in person, and they are specific to, the space that is allowed for the cohort. There is opportunity to take classes outside of the executive MBA program through the part-time Lang program. So if you are in DC, and there is elective offered through the part-time Langone program, there may be the opportunity for you to enroll in that, and some of their classes are offered online. Great. For evaluations on transcripts, so for those that may have international transcripts, the only translation that needs to be done is for language. Um, we don't require that you translate it to a 4.0 GPA system. We really just are looking to see the courses that you've taken, as well as the degree conferral. Great. Any other questions that I can help answer? These have been fantastic questions. I hope this has been really helpful in learning a lot more about the Executive MBA program in DC. I'm happy to answer any other questions that anybody may have. I'll give it another moment. Great. Well, I think we've covered most questions that have come in. Like I said, if as you're further digesting this material, or doing your research, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We're really happy to help at any stage of the process. Certainly encourage you to take that step in completing the pre-assessment, and our team will be in touch from there. And then, like I said, join us at an upcoming event, the student panels that we have coming up in September, at the end of September and October. It's a great way to get to hear from the students and learn a lot more about the program from them. Thank you for your time. Please reach out if you have any questions, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks.